All right, I am super excited to walk you through the brand new cursor replacement UI. Some of these elements have been around for a while, some of them quite a while, like scale and opacity, but there's some brand new elements. Again, you get to these by having a piece of media selected, making sure you're on the cursor tab, and then the properties panel will expose all of the properties that we allow for manipulating the cursor in a screen recording from Camtasia. So the first thing that's new is this brand new current cursor indicator, right? And so this is basically just a reflection of what the current cursor is under the playhead on the canvas at any given time. So as I drive through this, you can see that that element changes just by dragging the playhead here, right? So then we have the cursor keyframe navigation elements, right? So up here, you're gonna see that I have a left and a right arrow, and when I drive between the left and the right arrow, it indicates every time that there's a new keyframe and the cursor changes. I mean, sometimes you have keyframes and the cursor doesn't change, so it's possible to navigate through a couple of these and have them be the same cursor. But basically, you should see the cursor changing as you navigate left and right with these guys, and the playhead will update and reflect the position of that new keyframe. The other thing to draw your attention to is this green element right now. And what this is the keyframe indicator. So if I were to navigate with my keyboard and just push back and forth a couple of keyframes, you can see that that lights up or goes away. And it lights up when we're over the top of an actual keyframe. And this is sort of important because, you know what, maybe I want to delete the keyframe. And that's just as easy as clicking the toggle button right there, and you can see it goes dark, and that removes the keyframe. I can also click this guy to insert a new keyframe, and that's just going to give me the existing cursor image, but with a new keyframe at this point. Now, if I want to change the image there, I come down and I can choose a different cursor image at that keyframe. And so then if we navigate back and forth, we'll see at that keyframe we have that guy right there. So the next set of elements is the cursor replacement operations. It's a 3-state toggle. You can see I've got current selected right here. There's also similar and all. So when I'm in any of these, the cursor replacement operations are going to perform a little bit differently. So if I'm on current, like we just did, it will replace only the cursor between the next and previous keyframes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and choose the arrow right here. And I've just replaced that. I haven't changed anything else in this, right? So I can also do something like I could come into here and I could choose to say, I want to find some spot, let's say right here, and I want to replace all the times that this blurry, nasty cursor shows up. But I don't want to have to do that over and over and over again at every single keyframe. So in this case, I'm going to choose similar. And now if I come in here and I choose the arrow, you'll see that it has completely gotten rid of all the places where that cursor showed up. And I'm going to undo the operation here for a second, just so we can see that that shows up in multiple different points, right? So this nasty cursor is all over the place. And man, I don't want a bunch of tedious work to replace that guy out. All I want to do is come in here and just do one operation. And now it's completely gone. All of the cursors that looked like it have been replaced by the arrow cursor, right? So again, I will undo that operation. We can see we got our old friend, the blurry plus magnifier here back, and we're going to take a look at the all state, right? So this operation is nuclear. It basically says, hey, I only want one cursor and one cursor only. So for every keyframe in here, I want to replace all of them with some other image. So I've got all selected. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose the arrow pointer. And now I have the pointer right there. And if we drive through the keyframes, you can see it's removed a bunch of keyframes because there's basically only this cursor in it. Now I can go back in and I can start to add in keyframes using the diamond indicator right here and start to do things like use the drop-down list here, which will show you the cursor packs available. We have Mac and Windows and the recorded cursors, the cursors that came along with the piece of media in the recording. We also ship with the Mac and Windows system cursors, and these are both all vector cursors that you can use. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to choose to insert at this keyframe right here the pointing hand. And now I should have just a couple of spots. Oh, this is a gotcha. I didn't change my toggle state. So I just replaced all the cursors in here with the pointing hand. Let's go ahead while we're on that all and choose the arrow. All right. And now we're going to switch back into current. And now we're going to drag our playhead along here. And we're going to say, hey, I want to introduce a new keyframe right here. And at this point, I want the pointing hand. Okay. So what we should see happen is we have the arrow cursor right here, and then it changes to the pointing hand. So you have complete control. And it's going to be the pointing hand now because it was the only other cursor than the arrow because we just added it back in. It's going to be the pointing hand until I tell it otherwise. And I tell it otherwise by coming up and adding a new keyframe and then choosing the cursor that I want. And we'll go back to the arrow. So now you can see we should have pointing hand and arrow. Arrow, pointing hand, arrow. Those are the keyframes. So this is the way this works. It's a super powerful system, super flexible, gives you a lot of convenience, makes things super fast, right? So you don't spend a bunch of time doing tedious edits that you don't want to. The Mac and Windows system cursors afford you a lot of opportunity to work the way you need to work. Like, let's say someone recorded a Windows recording and handed it off to me, and I wanted to be able to use the Windows system cursors and perform some replacement. I just go down into the Windows system cursor pack, and now I'm going to perform some operations. I'll replace all of the similar arrow cursors right here with the Windows arrow cursor. And so now you can see we should have Windows arrow cursor, Mac pointing hand, and Windows arrow cursor. And if I wanted to replace the pointing hand here, the Windows pointing hand, let's go ahead and choose that. So we'll go ahead and grab the Windows pointing hand. Again, these are all vectors, so if I scale them up, you're not going to get any distortion or blurriness. All right, so the new cursor replacement UI. It's super powerful, super flexible, and very easy to use. You just got to remember which state you're on. That's going to control whether you're replacing just one cursor or you're going through and replacing all the cursors that look like it, or you're replacing all of the cursors, going nuclear and just nuking them all out and going back to, let's go back to the Mac cursors and choose that arrow cursor right there, right? Keep in mind, if you wanted to, you can always pick from the cursors that were picked up in the recording. So you can see all the cursors right here that were in the recording, and you can swap out those. So if I wanted to make everything in this the open hand, there you go. All right, let's just switch that back to the arrow cursor. So again, nuclear option. If I drag through here, now you're going to see there's no changes from this arrow right here. And this is actually a super compelling use case, right? It's the one that I use the most often because often I don't want the visual distraction and noise. I just want this guiding, the cursor guiding the eyes around the screen, indicating what things are clicked on. And I don't need a bunch of indication telling me as a user, hey, this is clickable or this is not clickable. For the viewer, that's going to be very obvious because the image, the cursor image you've got is hovering over it, and they'll see the button click down and animate. So hope you guys enjoy this new set of operations. It's super fun. I'm going to come back and we're going to dive into a super fun exercise, which is, hey, taking this to the next level and completely sort of trying to replace one of the toughest scenarios, I think, in the business. We're going to take a look at Adobe Photoshop and all of its custom cursors. So I'll be back with that video. Enjoy.